This part of the demonstration is going to involve a couple different things. I'm going to talk a little bit in detail about what we do in therapy, and then we'll try to show it to you with the help of Carlos here. Carlos is, how many people would want to change places with Carlos right now? You see, you're doing something that most people won't do. Standing up in front of a lot of other people and cameras can make people kind of nervous. But I would like to thank Carlos actually for doing this. It's really cool when somebody's willing to put themselves out there like this. Yeah, please. So, Carlos and I have talked a little bit about what we're going to be doing, so he kind of knows what to expect. The truth is, what should you expect out of this? I think what you should expect is to see what this would look like in a real session. The purpose of this is not treatment for Carlos. Okay, so let's kind of start that up front. I don't expect any of his symptoms will change. I don't expect that there's going to be a cure or anything. You're not going to see Jesus walk through the door or something like that. It's not going to happen. This is simply a way for you to see what this treatment should look like. And why do I want you to see what this treatment should look like? Because when you're doing therapy with a therapist, as much as I'd like to trust every therapist who's treating your child that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, you need to see what this looks like so you can know if something's wrong. You should see what this should look like correctly so you can say, wait a minute, this isn't what Dr. Woods did. This doesn't look anything like it, yet they're calling it the same thing. So that's what this is for, is to kind of hear the pitch of the note of what it should look like, and so you can see when something doesn't sound right or look right later on. So we're going to do a couple things. I'm going to describe what it is that we're doing, and then we'll do it. And then what we'll do periodically is I'll stop and I'll take questions. And I've asked Carlos if there are questions from the audience for him. If he can tell you what he's feeling, what it feels like, that's perfectly fine. And he can answer those questions as honestly as he wants. I want people to see what it's like to go through this. All right. So the first thing we do in CBIT, I'm going to talk mostly about the habit reversal piece because that's usually the part that interests people most. I'm going to show what I'm demonstrating today is habit reversal. We start by creating a symptom hierarchy. In other words, we list all of the tics the child is currently doing. And we're just going to talk about a couple. Carlos has a few. I'm just going to have him stop at 2. But we're going to talk about a couple different tics. And what we would normally do is list all the tics a child is currently doing and have them rate on a 0 to 10 point scale how bothersome the tic is or how bad it's been in the last week. And what we do is we start with the most bothersome tic first. We treat that, and then we work down the list. The idea being that if we can start with the tic that's the most bothersome for the child, then they're going to be more motivated if we can get that one reduced when we need to go on to the next one. After we've come up with the first tic, what we try to do is do awareness training. We do awareness training, competing response training, and social support, usually all in one session. And we do it for the first tic on the hierarchy, the most bothersome tic. When we're doing awareness training, the purpose of awareness training is to get the child to think a lot more about their tic, about what they're doing, how it feels, how to describe it, get them to know exactly when it's happening and when it's about to happen. And if we can do that, then we can act on it. We can do something about it. So we're going to do 3 things when we do awareness training. We're going to have him come up with a very detailed description of his tic, probably much more detailed than he ever thought about it before. Okay? Then we're going to have him practice detecting that tic. We're going to have him practice detecting not only the tic, but we're going to have him practice telling me when that urge to show up, that urge to tic has shown up. All right? After he becomes more aware of it, then we'll start doing competing response training. Competing response, I'm skipping through these slides so we can get right to it, but competing response training involves teaching him to do something that will physically prevent his tic from happening or make his tic much more difficult to do if he's doing the competing response. We'll have him choose a competing response, and we'll teach him the rules for choosing that competing response. The competing response we choose will have to be something that makes the tic harder to do. It has to be something that's not very noticeable, and it has to be something he can do for a minute or until the feeling goes away, whichever takes longer. We'll teach him how to choose it, and then I'll show him how it should be done, and then I will show him or have him practice it himself, right? And then he'll practice it as we sit there and talk. And periodically as we do this, I will stop and tell you why I'm doing what I'm doing so you understand what the purpose of it is. Okay? Right. After that, what we would normally do is bring up Carlos's mom or dad and have them learn what we've done in treatment, have them learn how they can help him. what we would have them do is say, every time Carlos does the tic but doesn't use his competing response exercise, we would ask the mom or dad to just remind him to do it. And if he doesn't do the competing response, or if he does the competing response exercise correctly, we'd ask the parents to just say, hey, good job, you caught it. Excellent. Okay. Then we'll stop from there. All right. Carlos, you ready?
Yeah.
Have a seat. Okay, now just remember, they're not watching you, they're watching me. You can't screw up, but I can. All right? This is a little weird because normally I wouldn't be looking away from you like this. I would be looking at you directly, but I'm going to be kind of at an angle. All right. So, Carlos, no, this is assuming, by the way, we've done our initial interview, we've done our initial intake. I know if he has any other problems that we have to work on, and this is when we're starting to work on the tics. This is that point in treatment. So, Carlos, what tics are you doing in the last week? What are the current tics you have?
I go like this a lot.
Okay.
Lifting my head.
Neck lifting, all right.
Yes,
Head lifting.
And clenching my teeth. That.
Okay.
Almost like you're biting down on something that's not there.
Okay.
And kind of like that. Kind of like a mixture between like almost puckering your lips and lifting your eyebrows. It's face control. It's hard to explain.
As nose stretching all
Yeah,
together?
like that.
Okay, all right. Any other ones? Any sounds or anything like that you're doing?
No, not really. Just basically those three main ones.
Okay, so the neck lifting, clenching,
Lifting, clenching, and face
face
contorting.
stuff.
Yes.
Call it face stuff.
Yeah, face stuff.
Now, okay, let's on a 0 to 10 point scale. With 0 meaning it doesn't bother you at all, it's not been a problem at all, it's not been happening very much at all, and 10 being it's really like bothering you, it's bad, it's rough. Where would you say in the last week your neck lifting has been?
Neck lifting's pretty annoying.
Yeah. Okay.
I'd say about 9 because
9.
it
Right.
not only when you do it, it kind of almost hurts. Like it hurts my neck sometimes. Like
Okay.
after a while, I'm like ah.
How about the clenching?
Clenching is probably about an 8. That's pretty annoying as well.
Okay. And how about the nose twitching?
No, switching doesn't bother me that much.
Okay.
It's just kind of annoying sometimes, but it's probably about 5, 4,
5.
maybe.
Okay. All right. So the one that's bothering you most is the neck lifting.
Definitely.
All right. So what we typically do in this treatment is we try to start with the tic that bothers you the most. All right. So we'll work on the big one first. All right. So we'll work on the neck lifting today. And one of the first things we want to do when we start working with tics is we want you to become more aware that it's happening. We want you to notice every single time you do your neck thing. All right. Now you may know that it's happening a lot already, and if so, this is going to go really fast. You may be only aware of part of the time you're doing it. So we're going to, we'll see. But we want to start by making you really aware of when it's happening. And the first thing we need, the reason we want to make you more aware of it is because you can't really do anything about it unless you know it's happening. So we really have to increase your awareness first. Now, the way we start by increasing your awareness is having you come up with the definition of it. All right, so we want you to define it. And the reason I want you to describe it to me is not so much so I know what it is, but I really want you to describe it so you know what it is. All right? And I want you to think about things when you do this tic that you may never have thought about before. Okay? So here's how I want to start. I want you to imagine that I can't see. All right? I'm blind. All right? And I want you to describe to me in as much detail as you can what this tic looks like and feels like.
For the neck?
For the neck. Just talking about the neck. So why don't you give me a few examples of what it looks like? Is it? And notice you're kind of stretching too. Is that the same thing?
Kind of like, yeah, it's
Okay.
movement.
So all the.
Like, almost like you're doing the dance. Like
Okay.
that. All
right. Okay. So is back too? Is it just stretch?
Back. It'll be like back.
Okay.
It'll be like that sometimes, but majority just like.
Okay. So just use words to describe it to me. From the second that you know it's coming until it's over.
Pressure. It feels. I've really never even thought about the feeling before.
How long have you had this tic?
Happens. Since I was 4.
Oh, you're 14. You've
Yes.
had it for 10 years.
I've had this tic for a pretty long time.
Okay.
Yeah. It's one of those ones that's just stuck with me.
Okay. So you're one of your good old friends, right?
Yeah, good old friend.
Right. Okay. So you said pressure. So why don't you start there and
It
describe
feels. If I were to sit here, try to not make it happen, it's like something's pressing down, like a feeling pressure that you have to relieve. Does that make sense? Does that make sense, guys? It's like a kind of, I have to lift my neck up and bounce it back, like a pressure. Almost feels like my bones touching my muscle, whatever it is, and it's like a sharp, not. I would say pain. It's not. It's painful, but it's not like overly like, ouch.
Good.
But I feel like, okay, how do I explain? Say if there's a knife in the back of my head. There's right here, my bone is a knife. I'm gonna go like that. There's something that I feel, and I can feel something touching right there, and it's like a sharp, almost like a toothpick, like kind of poking.
And that's before you do it, or that's when you start?
That's when I start doing it. That's the feeling that I want to accomplish. It's the feeling that I want to, I'm gonna get. But the feeling before, it's more like a pressure. It's almost like you have to, kind of gotta do it. You just gotta do it. It's just, it's always been like that. It's like a force.
Okay, all right. Now, once that pressure shows up, and I know eventually you get to the point once your head gets back that it feels like the knife is touching.
Yes.
You know. But before that, go between the pressure and the knife, what's happening to your body? Think about the movement itself. What's it doing? Do it a couple times and you'll see. Go slow it down, slow it down.
Like lifting my head up. Back.
Okay.
It's just raising my head up.
But feel your muscles. What do you feel? Where are the stretches? Where are the...
Stretch right here.
Yeah, they're stretching there. Okay. What about here? You feel anything in there?
Around here.
Right here. So you get some
Kinda like-
stretching feeling in there.
Yeah.
What are your eyes doing when you do it? Do a couple of them.
My eyebrows are kind of.
Your eyebrows are going.
I have never noticed that.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Your eyebrows and your eyes are looking up too.
Yeah.
Okay. There's a lot going on there. A lot more than you ever thought about.
Yeah.
Right. So your brows go up. Eyes go up. Get stretching feelings in your neck, in the front.
Yeah.
What else? Slow it down. Just do it. I mean, if you're going to beat this thing, you got to know what it is. You know.
Head's going. My back of my head's going back. My chin's going up.
Stretch feeling, eyes up.
Stretch feeling, eyes up. Eyebrows up. Back and my neck. I guess the muscles are kind of tightening.
Okay.
And you can feel like a force. And I'm not like a scientist, but I guess there's like these two bones or something right here. But I can feel them. I don't know what they're called. I don't even know what they are. But it's like I can feel the two bones like pressure.
Okay.
Is building up on it, and just go like that. It kind of pops up, and you can feel it in the back of my neck. It's
All right. Do a couple more of those. Just so something else. You feel any pressure in here? When you do it, like right about here?
just my shoulders kind of shrug when I do it.
Okay, so that's a good one. Yeah, I noticed your shoulders are starting to pop up a little bit.
You've noticed more than I.
That's why we do this. Right? Okay, so do a couple more of them for me. Just. Okay. Okay. Now, that's actually a pretty good description. So if we look at it, we go pressing down on the neck, feels like the bone is touching the muscle, I think is how you described it.
Yeah.
Then you feel, once your head gets back, you feel a poking feeling. When you do this, your chin starts to go up. You feel some strain in here, some pressure back here, some maybe a little bit of strain here. Your shoulders pop up a little bit. You start, your eyes may go up a little bit, and your brows may go up a little bit. Your muscles back here tighten, especially if you're going like this. And then your shoulders, like I said, pop up a little bit. Does that sound like a pretty good description?
Yeah.
What happens to the feeling back here after you do it?
Goes away, then it comes right back.
Right. Okay, now that is the response description phase of this. Okay, that's where we're describing the tic. And that's the level of detail you should get to when you're describing one of these things. It's not simply, when people are doing this wrong, what it looks like is, so you've got this neck jerking tic. Why don't you describe it for me? How would you describe it initially to somebody if you hadn't gone through what you just did?
Annoying.
Okay.
Kind of like a little pop, like a little lift
Right.
to my neck. That's all I really would have said.
That's what he would have said. That's normally if therapists don't really know what they're doing, that's what they stop with. Okay. But the point of this is to get him to think about every single bit of this thing. You know, he's had this for 10 years and he doesn't know much about it yet. Okay. He knows it's a pop and my head goes up a little bit. And the point of this is to make them super aware of it. And again, it's not to do that with making him self-conscious of it. I'm not making him feel bad about it. At least I don't think I am I? So, you know, the point is just to say, this is what you're doing. Okay, here we go. Now we can deal with it. All right, so that's where we're at. Okay, so now what I'd like to do, Carlos, is I'd like to do a little practice. All right, now for the next few minutes, I just want to sit here and I want to talk. All right, but I don't want to talk about your tics. All right, give enough time to those. We're going to talk about something else. All right? But I want you to do something. Every time you either feel that feeling in the back of your neck or you start to do your tic, this one, just this, I don't care about the other ones. You can take all the other ones you want. Just this one. Whenever you do that, I want you to just raise a finger and let me know you caught it. All right? If you catch it, I'm going to say, hey, good job. If you miss it, I'm going to say, oh, there was one, don't forget. All right? Make sense? Okay. So, where are you from?
South Carolina.
Good. Did you have an urge beforehand?
Yeah.
Okay. What city in South Carolina?
Lexington.
Lexington. Where is that? We're good. We're in relation to Columbia. Yeah.
Right next to it. It's the county.
Got it?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
Did
Richland.
you catch it?
Oh God.
No. Now, okay. Here's why we're doing what we're doing. First of all, one way to do this and to do it wrong is if I were to just sit here and stare at him and wait for him to tick. And don't forget to raise your finger.
Yes.
All right. But that's not a good way to do that because A, that would be very easy for him. But B, it's not realistic because that's not what he's going to be expected to do in the real life, in his real world. He's going to be expected to, while he's interacting with his world, you have it? Good job, man. While you're interacting with your world, you've got to be paying attention to the tic a little bit.
Oh.
Yeah, you got to be careful. I didn't even notice that. If you're not used to being mic'd up, you got to be very cautious. All right. So we want him to be thinking about his day-to-day world, interacting with it. Don't forget to raise your hand. And while being aware of the tic. Nice job. To keep that kind of thing up. And then that's why we talk about stuff that has good. Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're from Columbia. Not from Columbia, you're from
Lexington.
Good. You just had an urge? Good.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're from Lexington. And how far is that from Columbia?
Maybe like, well, if I want to get to Columbia where I'm at, it's probably like 15, 30 minutes away.
Okay. All right.
Not that far.
And how far is that from Charleston? Good job.
About an hour.
Oh, okay, that's not too bad then. So you're fairly close to the beach.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. You get to the beach a lot?
Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
Well, sometimes.
So what do you do for fun? Good.
Play football for
Yeah.
my school.
What position do you play?
Defensive tackle.
Okay. You look like a big guy. You could probably
Yeah.
do well in the line.
I sing and I play the piano.
Oh, do you? How long have you played piano?
By myself I've been always fiddling around on my piano since I was 12 maybe? 11, 12-ish. Got on YouTube because YouTube's great for everything.
Yeah.
And learned how to play some songs and stuff like that. Got a worship leader at my church started giving me some piano lessons and I just got a little bit of it. Then football season started and I had to quit.
Yeah.
And then from there,
Good.
it's all internet. I had to learn. I played it to accompany
Good.
when I'm singing, so I just know some chords and stuff
Yeah.
like that. But
Very cool.
it's fun. I like it.
Nice. My son plays piano. Did you catch that last one?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So what are you noticing? Is it getting easier or harder?
If I pay attention, it gets easier. It's different. I don't know. It's hard to like when I'm talking, I have to think about before I do it, and then give you my answer at the same time.
Right. But you'll notice what you notice for what he's done is he wasn't catching them all. Now he's just reliable. This is a few minutes into this. He's reliably catching every single time it happens. His speech was also sort of more halting at the beginning, and now it's much more like he's involved in good. And so that's how this works. I mean, that's why we practice in real life. Awesome. Now, are you noticing something? Are any of you noticing something about what he's doing, how he's doing this? What do you?
Sweating before he's doing it.
Right. you're noticing every time before the urge, or when the urge happens, right before you do the movement.
Yeah.
Right? Now, why is that important? Want to guess?
Because I can catch myself.
Yeah, that's your in. Tourette's gives you very little advantage, but the one advantage it might give you here is that you might be able to catch it before it actually happens. That urge thing is a good thing. So you've got, if you've got between here and here, you've got about a half a second to a second before you tic. And so that is your in. That's your chance. As soon as you notice that urge, you can do something about it. All right? Okay, so at this point, he's done a good job catching his tics. Awesome. So we're going to stop. Normally we continue until he's about able to catch 80% of the tics. All right? And at that point, then we'll switch to the next thing. All right? Now the next thing we want to do, Carlos, is to teach you something called a competing response. All right? Or we're going to call them your exercises. And what we want to do is to teach you to do something that will physically prevent the tic, or at least make it harder to do. And we're going to want you to do that exercise for a minute or until the feeling goes away, whichever takes longer, for every time you feel the urge to tic or actually start doing the tic. All right, now, this exercise that we're going to ask you to do, we're going to kind of come up with something together, but it should meet 3 rules. All right? So any exercise that we choose should first be something that when you're doing the exercise, you can't do the tic, or the tic's a lot harder to do. That's the first thing. Second thing is, it has to be something that's less noticeable than the tic itself. So, for example, you can get your head to stop going by going like this. That would look a little strange.
Yes.
Maybe even more strange than a tic might look. So we don't want to do that. All right. Third part of the rule is that it has to be something you can do for a minute or until the feeling goes away, whichever takes longer, in almost any situation. So it has to be something you can do pretty much when in any situation you're in that you can hold for a minute.
Yeah.
All right? So can you think of something that might do that?
No.
Okay. And, sometimes that might be the case. As a therapist, ideally we want this to be a decision between the child and myself, the therapist. I know what I want. I know what I think will work best, but I want the child to learn how to come up to this by themselves, because I want them to be able to deal with this in the future as they go along. This is a skill they should learn, that they don't need me anymore. I want to put myself out of business if they learn the right skills. If they've learned how to do this, I am not necessary. That's the whole point. So in this case, if he can't think of anything, then the first thing I'll do is say, okay, well, I'll give you an example. So for the neck jerking thing, one of the common ones we use for neck jerking tics is slightly tensing your neck. So it would be like this. It would look. I would want you to drop your chin just a little bit, and I want you to hold the sides of your neck gently, not with your hands, but tight gently. All right. Now it should be gently. I don't want your neck quivering because it's so tight.
Yeah.
Okay, but it has to be tight enough that I can't really push your head over. All right. So it's that kind of thing, and I want your chin down, so you should feel a little tightness here. You should feel a little tightness here. All right. So that would be the exercise. All right. Now, what I want you to do is to do that exercise for a minute or until the feeling goes away, whenever you feel the feeling. Now, here's what I'm going to warn you about. It's going to build up. Okay, when you start to do this, the feeling will get worse. It'll get higher and higher and higher and higher, and it'll feel like I cannot take this anymore. That's when you got to double down and wait it out, because what normally happens is after a few minutes, it kind of fades away. All right? And then it gets easier and easier and easier and easier. Right? Now, that doesn't always happen. It doesn't happen for everybody. And sometimes it just takes a lot of practice to try to, to go longer and longer and longer each time you do the exercise. But try as hard as you can to hold it back for a while and see, and just sit back and kind of watch when you're doing that exercise. Sit back and watch what happens to that feeling. See what happens to it. Watch it go up, watch it go down. Just kind of take a distance from it and see. All right. So here's what it would look like. Let's say I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden I have that pressure in the back of my neck. What I would do is go like this. And I would hold it. And now while I'm doing this, I'm not just sitting there thinking about that. I'm talking, I'm engaging, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, paying attention to the teacher, watching TV, playing a video game, whatever it might be, but I've just got my neck a little bit tighter. Okay? At the end of the minute, I ask myself, do I feel like I have to do it still? If I do, then I just kind of keep going with it. It shouldn't be so tight that it's hurting. Okay? If at the end of the minute, the feeling's gone, cool, I let it go. All right? I don't worry about it. All right? And then the next time it comes up, I do it again. All right? If you miss it, like if the feeling has shown up and gone away, and you've started to tic already, you've started to do the tic, just stop and then do the exercise, right? So it looked like this. I'm sitting there watching TV, I feel the urge, I do the exercise. Minute passes, the feeling's gone, I let it go. Then I'm sitting there and I don't notice the urge, but I go like this. I would stop, put my neck down, and hold it for a minute until the feeling goes away. All right? Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Right. So why don't you practice it once? Okay, do you have the urge?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Now tell me, yeah, it's good. But pay attention to me, talk to me, okay? Don't go into the urge. I just want you to tell me, on a 0 to 10 scale, how strong is that urge right now?
8.
Good, okay, that's fine.
7, 8, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So just now, back to football, while we're talking about football. What year are you in school? Freshman?
8th grade.
8th grade, my goodness. Big 8th grade. So I take it you start on your football team.
Yeah, some stuff. Some
Yeah.
stuff not. Yeah.
Oh, make sure you keep your neck down. So you played defensive line. Did you have a lot of sacks this last year?
Yeah, a couple.
Yeah?
I had one big tackle. It was awesome. That was on kickoff.
Oh, yeah? Oh, that's where you get some good speed.
I love
going
kickoff.
behind you.
Yeah.
It really destroys somebody on that. Where's your urge right now? 0 to 10?
Excuse me?
On your urge, 0 to 10?
Probably about a 9.
Okay, good. So what do you play on offense? Or do you only go defense?
I basically just do defense.
Oh, okay. Have you played any other positions other than defensive line?
Kickoff and defensive line. That's basically all I do. I played some nose guard, just a little bit.
Yeah. You like which position on the line do you like best?
I have to say my favorite overall in the football thing is doing kickoff, but then I like doing defensive tackle. That's pretty fun.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Where's your urge now?
8.
Okay. So one back down a little bit.
Yeah.
All right. So you play any other sports?
No.
No?
No.
No. No track, no shot, no discus, no.
I was gonna try to do the shot put, but I couldn't because it interfered with my schedule.
Oh, okay. So what kind of music do you like?
Everything. I like everything. I like pop, Christian,
Yeah?
anything.
Yeah.
Anything that catches my ear.
Okay. So where's your urge at now?
5.
5. Okay. So just keep doing it. You're doing fine. What do you do for fun on the weekends?
Hang out with my friends.
Yeah, what do you guys do?
There's a lake near where I live, so we either go on the lake or go out to eat together or do something. Just
Okay.
chill.
Okay, cool. So what's your favorite subject in school?
Language arts
Yeah.
and social studies.
Cool.
Yeah.
What do you like most about social? I'm a social scientist, so I like social studies too. So
I just like about social studies how people from the past did stuff and facts and how things were made and how people from ancient times were able to put stuff together in their lives and like what works and what doesn't work between socially
right.
events and stuff like that. Social events. Yeah.
Yeah. So where's your urge now?
4.
Okay.
This is weird. It's like it started off where like I wanted to do it so bad, and now it's like not so bad.
That's your brain's going to do that though. It's not your brain won't, if you hold out long enough when something like this is happening, your brain, whatever cells are firing to cause that, they can't keep firing forever. It'll fade away. We call that habituation. That happens kind of normally. And just sometimes something will happen and it'll spike it again, but it doesn't have to fire is the point. So I like history too. That's actually my favorite subject in school. If I had to do over again, I'm glad I didn't. But if I had to do it over again, I might have been a history teacher. Because in Wisconsin, I'd be unemployed. So where's your urge at now?
It's kind of like fluctuating a little bit. Like right now, it's about like a 5, but went up just a little bit.
Yeah,
but
sure.
it just could be in the moment kind of thing.
Do you feel like you have to do it anymore? I mean, do you feel like if you let your neck go, you'd tic?
I feel like right now, I feel like if I don't really have to do it, but I feel like if I did do it, then I would have to. Does that make sense? Like if I did do it, then the pressure would come back on, but I don't feel like I have to do it.
Okay, you can let your neck go then. You don't have to do the tic, but you don't have to do the tensing thing anymore.
I don't feel it's not There's no.
Not there anymore, is it?
No.
Yeah.
It's no. There's no word pressure.
Right, it's gone.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's an example of what it would look like. Okay, and it took about 5 minutes the first time you did it. The second time you do it, it'll take shorter. The third time you do it, it'll take less. The fourth time you do it, it'll take less. So, so the next time you do it, now I want to sit here and I just want to talk a little bit more.
Yeah.
Did you just feel it again?
No, I was just nodding my head.
Oh. The next time you feel it, I want you to, or when you do the tic, I want you to go right back into the exercise. But importantly, I do not want you to like just sit there and focus on the tic. You've given more than enough time in your life to these tics. No more. I mean, do the exercise, keep it down, but then just talk to me. Talk to your friends. Talk to No. Don't touch that. Just do the urge, or do the exercise. Chin down slightly, and just let the urge go. Do what it's going to do. Okay, but talk to me. What's your favorite period of history?
Period of history. I like if we're talking like ancient, I like the whole like Greek and Roman.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. And then if we're talking more recent, I'm pretty interested in the like 40s, 50s, 60s.
Oh, okay.
Like the whole like hippie stuff. That's pretty cool. And like during the hippies is in the 60s. 60s is more like hippie and awesome, and then 40s is because like World War II and stuff like that. And I'm pretty sure that interests me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's your favorite period of American history?
Yeah, just like
40s, 50s.
40s, 50s, 60s around there. Actually, not in the 50s. I don't even know anything about that. Just 40s, 60s.
There wasn't much going on.
Yeah, not much. 60s, 40s.
Just the Korean War and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where's yours? It's been about a minute.
5.
Okay. Just kind of keep it going, unless you feel like you're done. I mean, once you feel it's gone, but. Yeah, I like my favorite period of American history is probably the Civil War.
Civil War?
Yeah, I think that's the most interesting period for me. I wasn't born in the 60s, so that still is history to me. It's not.
History to me too.
Yeah. The 90s might be history to you. That's the scary part. Where's your urge?
Great.
Okay. So what is it about World War II that is so exciting, so interesting to you?
It's interesting, just the whole fact, like World War, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like it's like a ripple effect. Somebody does something, and then something else happens, and then Hitler rises to power, and Mussolini and Stalin, and they're all like, we're the 3 bad stooges, and they're all like crazy. And then like, it's cool, it's interesting, and it's like when it comes to the Holocaust, it's really sad, and it's almost like interesting on how people think. Like for me, I would never hate someone so much to do that, and it's almost shocking, like how somebody could do that, and that's why I think it's interesting. Not like, oh, it's cool, but it's like it's
what leads to that?
Yeah, what leads to that?
Yeah.
What can go so bad that makes you want to do that?
Right.
To someone?
Right,
Yeah.
and especially people you don't even know. I mean,
Yeah.
Make it even further extreme.
Yes.
Where's your urge?
2.
Okay. So what'd you notice here? It's quicker, right? It's faster. Never got up quite as high. This is the second time it happened. So keep going, keep going, keep going. What do you see? You see it happening faster and faster and faster. I mean, what are you feeling? What's your how do you think about this? I mean, what's it like for you inside?
Well, it's almost like, when you first start, before you go into it, it's like a pressure. It's like the normal pressure, and then you're trying to hold it off, and it's like getting stronger, trying not to like clench my fist down. It's almost painful, like in a way. It's like almost like whoa, and you have to get through it, and then once it breaks this barrier, it's like do.
Right. I've heard that described so many times that not that well actually, but that kind of thing. It's like you build it, and at some point it's just like the switch goes off, and then it's done. You know, and you break that barrier, so to speak, and down it goes. That's right. Don't apologize. But this is what we would do as a reminder. This is why we have the parents come in. The parents' role is when one of those slips out, it's not, hey, stop ticking. It's more, hey, don't forget your exercise. Because this is a hard thing to do, to pay attention to your own body all the time. That's why the parents are there to help. Okay, and so we just remind him to use it, and then he goes into it. Now, while he's into it, he can pull out his video games and play. I don't care. But that's completely fine. Because again, that's what he might normally do. The point is just to hold the exercise until that urge passes, and eventually that urge goes away faster and faster and faster. Now, what else are you noticing in the audience as you're watching him?
We were noticing that his fist was very tight when you first started, but then it started out with his thumb between his fingers, and then as you guys were talking, it slowly came out, and the whole hand just kind of relaxed. You could see that you were tense about it at first, but then started relaxing as you felt better about it.
Where's your urge? 4. Okay. So now, if you just are watching him and you didn't know what was happening, what would you say? If you hadn't been watching treatment, just observing what he's doing.
No tics.
Just relax.
Yeah. But I mean, compare how many tics were happening, how many of the head jerks were happening before to happening right now.
And even when he does tick, it's not as severe. The
Yeah.
severity level has come down
Right.
from when he relaxes and lets the tick happen.
Yeah. That's right. The intensity of them has been diminished as well. Are they going to still happen? Of course they're still going to happen. He has Tourette's. It's not gone. It looks like it's gone, but it's not. It's there. The question is, can you manage it more effectively? Can you bring about reductions that way? Okay. Where's your urge?
2.
Okay, now remember, the first time he went into this exercise, this soon after he started the exercise, his rating was at a 9. Now, this soon after he started his exercise, it's at a 2. Where's it at now?
Feel it.
He doesn't feel it. And that's what I'm talking about. When I talk about fast, it can be this fast. Okay. Now, of course, the ones are going to slip out here and there. That will happen. But the point is just to gently kind of stay on it. All right. And as what happens when he leaves here, if this works. Again, this is an if this works kind of thing. I'm not saying it's, this isn't a treatment. I told him up front, I'm not treating you now. I'm simply showing them what this looks like. I hope there's some benefit to you long term, but I don't know that there will be. So that's what this is about. What this would look like if we sent him home after the first session is I would say, okay, from here on out, every time you feel the urge or you start to do the head movement, I want you to do the competing exercise. I want you to hold it for a minute or until the feeling goes away, whichever takes longer. Don't care what time of day it is. That's what I want you to do. Your mom's going to remind you if she sees you doing it and not doing the exercise. She's going to tell you good job if she sees you using the exercise appropriately. What's going to happen is you're going to feel like you're doing this all the time for the first few days. It's going to diminish. The tic really won't be there much after a couple days. It'll start to creep back. You'll think things are okay, great, and then it'll start to come back, and that's when you got to step on it again. And if you keep doing this over and over again, generally that tic will diminish greatly, if not go away. And that's if it works. That's what it looks like. Okay, yeah, question.
Do you have a list of competing exercises for different parts of the body?
Mhm.
Those that you refer.
Yeah, there are a whole bunch of different exercises that we would do for this. Okay, where's your urge? And you did a nice job of catching it, by the way. That was cool. Didn't even need prompted. And one thing though, Carlos, the earlier you can get it, the better. If you can catch it as soon as that urge is there, it's better than when catching it right after the tic happens. Okay, so there are different competing responses we'd use for different tics. Some tics are harder to treat. Eye blinking tics and eye rolling stuff is really hard to treat. Most of those fast facial kinds of things are hard to treat. The jaw clenching thing that he's doing would actually be fairly simple. It would be just closing your teeth together, kind of pursing your lips like that, holding that position for a minute every time you feel the urge to do it, blah, 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 same thing. Vocal tics are all treated the same way. They're treated through a relaxed breathing procedure, okay? And the vocal tics, and it's always the opposite direction that the tic happens. So if it's a sniffing tic, the competing response would be in through the nose and out through the mouth, because the tic is made on an exhale through the nose. So you always go opposite the way the tic is made. If it's a kind of tic, exhale through the mouth, good. Exhale through the mouth. You'd go inhale through the mouth, exhale through the nose. Okay? And so you'd always do that. It doesn't matter, people get wigged out about the swearing stuff. Like, oh, it's swearing. What do I do for that? Swearing is a vocal tic. Doesn't matter what's coming out of your mouth. It's a vocal tic. In through the mouth, out through the nose. Every time you feel the urge to do it. Okay, and wait until the urge passes. Do that over and over and over again. And there are lists, there are books that we have that have competing responses in it for therapists. So, any other questions in the back?
How
Yeah.
about multiple tics? If you're doing multiple tics,
We would only treat,
Sequence.
we treat one tic, in sequence, like a complex tic with a series of tics that always happen in the same way. The way to go after that is to go after the first part of the complex tic. So you build a competing response and exercise around the first part of that tic, and then you would, the rest of it would normally fall out. You wouldn't have the rest of the tic. What's your urge?
One.
Okay, good. Okay, work on catching them right before they happen, okay?
This comes up sometimes and then it just
Yeah.
goes back down.
No, it's going very fast now, isn't it? The urge shows up, you
Yeah,
do the
so that's
exercise.
like boom.
Right, exactly. That's how it should look. Yeah.
One of the things my son reports is that when he's done doing some kind of just made-up competing response, it builds up and he has this explosive complex tic. And sometimes that happens and sometimes it does. I don't know,
Yeah.
to the extent it does, but I hear him talking about that. And he'll do that because he'd rather go longer periods than have bigger tics.
Yeah. In session, we would encourage him not to do that because really, if you understand the model, what's happening is you're reinforcing even bigger groups of tics, and that's not what we want to have happen. So we have to try to break through that bad feeling and wait until that
So
goes
you
away.
need a different competing response essentially.
Potentially, yeah.
He's doing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
He's suppressing and it's building rather than suppressing and getting rid of the urge.
Well, now keep in mind, what the competing response should never take away the urge. Okay? So when you do this, that doesn't feel the same as when you tic, does it? No, I mean, it feels very different. I mean, doing this does not make that feeling go away. Doing this lets that feeling go away by itself. And that's a very different way of looking at it, all right? Yeah. Yeah.
does this work with vocal tics as well?
Actually, I find that I have more luck with vocal tics than motor tics. I mean, personally, I think those are a little bit easier to treat. They go away faster, in my opinion. Again, when it works. Yeah.
How hard is it for them to keep us implemented when they're at school? They're trying to concentrate on academics and then you're busy trying, oh, hold it, what'd she say? Hold it. So just wondering how that kind of automatically comes into play.
Well, let me ask Carlos. When I was talking to you, how hard was it for you to pay attention to what I was saying?
At first, very, very hard. Because you're trying to focus not to do it.
Right.
And then it's like that, like I said, the tension, it's like a rocket, and it's just like fueling, it's just going up. But then, it's hard because you're trying to make yourself not do it.
Yeah.
As you're trying to pay attention at the same time, and you kind of get confused, you have to like stop,
Yeah.
think. But after a while, once it slowly like breaks away,
Yeah.
it's very easy.
Okay. So you heard what he said. That was the first time he's done this. So imagine having practiced this for 2 weeks now, and how good do you think you'll be at it? So of course, anytime you're learning something new, you're going to be a little distracted and it's going to be hard to do 2 things at one time, and you're going to have some trouble doing other things. As you get better at it, it becomes more easy to do in terms of being able to pay attention. So think of like riding a bike. The first time you ride a bicycle, learning a new skill, you're not thinking of anything but trying to stay on the bike. If somebody's talking to you, you don't pay attention. But now you could have a full conversation with somebody riding next to you. You're not even thinking about what you're doing. So sure, there's some distraction, just like there'd be a distraction for any new thing when you're first learning how to do this.
Do you give a modification of time, like, okay, you're an hour, do it, okay, let the rest of the day
No.
just take a break? Or do you want continuous?
Continuous.
Full force?
Continuous.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, if family absolutely cannot handle it, or the kid's struggling a ton, then we might go for blocks that we make longer and longer during the day.
That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if you remember meeting.
Yeah. How you doing?
Jackie, good to see you. That was maybe 4 or 5 years ago when I saw you at Rush with Dr. Bernard. But back to the vocal tics, I've spent most of my life
Right.
doing that. And
Now I remember you.
yeah. Here we go, a mile away. Exactly. My parents always knew which kid was up. So I remember, you put your ear right next to it. It was very disconcerting. Is your name Carlos?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, when, to be pointing this out or whatever, I remember I cried all the way home. It's not your fault. But because it's just so so excruciatingly humiliating, it's the way you feel or whatever. But I was thinking of how embarrassing it was, to have your ear next to me and trying to figure out the physicality of what all is involved in sound. And then your recommendation, which was really good, was put the tip of my tongue on the roof of my mouth, because I can't do it anymore.
Right.
When I do that. But my trouble is I really like to talk. I know I'm interesting. So I keep talking, and then it starts up again, and it's so hard to stop it. But like you said, it's a full-time job. But the more you do it, I'm living proof. The more you do it, the more it. I call it the beach ball syndrome. I feel like it's a beach ball, and you're trying to press the ball into water, farther and farther down or whatever. And pretty soon it's going to explode. And you always get into the explosion. But if you can keep down, just let it go. It's so much better, but it's a constant thing. I mean, it's a daily struggle. But there is hope for the vocal. I agree, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah.
What about the mental tics, like worry tics? I mean, I know they're intrusive thoughts, but there's also mental tics. So I know, how do you...
That's really not something we can deal much with, frankly. Yeah. It's just, we can't build a competing response around and as soon as you basically do a competing response, try not to think about this or think about something else. As soon as you do that, they're going to start thinking about what they're supposed to be, not thinking about. Yeah, it becomes tough. Oh, yeah.
What about a stutter step or a stop? We'll be walking along, and all of a sudden my son just stops.
Yeah.
And we'll have be in the airport, and it's just like all of a sudden he's not there, and it's like, I'll be with you in a second.
Yeah.
And then
Those are some of the types of tics that are just much more difficult to deal with. That one we probably struggle with.
probably do breathing, maybe try.
Again, there's not. What's a competing response for not doing something?
Yeah.
It's doing something, but that's a hard thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Does this work, like the OCD behaviors of symmetry? Like my daughter, she gets tapped on this side, she needs to feel it tapped on the other.
It would look a little bit different. But we would basically what I would do is the same kind of thing though in session would be sit there and tap on one side and not let her get tapped on the other side, so to speak, and then just say, okay, let's ride the feeling a little bit. Let's see where it goes. And then what would happen is the same thing that happened here, which is the feeling started to go down.
But would you be tensing something?
No, probably not at that point, if it was more of an OCD thing.
Actually, what her therapist did was, he said you can keep hitting that same side, but you can't hit the other side.
It's the same idea. It's probably the same idea. Dan?
Doug, I'm just curious about what you think is if you have any comments on how the automation process sets in terms of anatomy and physiology of the brain. In other words, obviously the ability for Carlos to kind of make the process of the going into the competing response a little bit more easygoing and allowing the attention to stay on whatever it's trying to stay on, and yet go into a kind of an automated tensing or whatever the competing response is. It's obviously not the autonomic nervous system taking over, but what is happening within the voluntary brain?
Okay, well, remember we talked about what causes a tic is that break in that first session is the braking system doesn't work so well, so things that shouldn't slip through do slip through the striatum. Well, that all happens sort of unconsciously. But there's another pathway in people in everybody, that's sort of you're noticing that something's going to happen and you're intentionally trying to stop it. It's called from the prefrontal cortex down into the basal ganglia. There's pathways whose job it is to intentionally try to stop things, consciously trying to stop things, right? Now, interestingly, in kids with Tourette's, that pathway seems to actually even be a little stronger than people without Tourette's, okay? Because they practice it all the time. They're always using it. It's like a muscle that's getting worked. So that pathway seems to be even potentially a little stronger. Now, what would that mean? This part of the brain, a lot of that's involved in attention, paying attention to other things. So every time he notices the tic, or the urge, think of it, okay, this part is lit up. I'm aware now. I'm aware. I've got to do something. What am I going to do? I'm going to do something intentionally to step on the brakes, so to speak. So this lights up, the pathway goes down into the basal ganglia and says, stop the movement, all right? And then the urge goes away by itself. Right. Now that can become routine. That itself can become habitual, right? And so he'll learn is that every time that urge comes up, that pathway should be initiated. Right? Now, what happens long term? If he were to keep doing this, what would happen? Would he be doing this all of his life, just as often as he does the tic? No, he wouldn't. This would only be activated when the urge shows up. The rest of the time, he would just not do it. And if the urge isn't there as much anymore, he wouldn't have to do this. Right? So this doesn't replace this. All right? It's not a replacement thing. It functions differently than that. Other questions?
I have a question, but for Carlos.
Yeah.
I'm amazed sitting here at how quickly you're catching yourself now. In an hour. You are amazing. I'm sitting here in awe. I know you're in front of the whole group, but I just wanted to say congratulations and thank you.
Any other last questions for Carlos or myself? Yeah.
For Carlos, in the process of doing this, I'm wondering how you feel from a perspective of self-esteem, confidence, feeling better about yourself, knowing that you have that kind of tool to be able to help you empower yourself to, within the, living with your tics.
I feel great. It's amazing. Almost like instead of going through school and like moving my head and stuff, and my friends being like, "What are you doing? What are you doing now?" Now I know I can. Like I've never really thought about that. I've never thought about that possibility of being able to sit there and break through the barrier and just goes down. I feel in the matter of an hour or so, however long we've been here, it's like a boost of confidence almost. It makes you feel like now you know how to reverse you know how to stop what's going to happen. It's like it's amazing.
It's actually interestingly, he says that because that's one of the things that we hear from parents a lot is, my kid's tics are down. And that's great, but the biggest benefit that he's gotten out of this is he finally feels in control of himself a little bit. And I used to not really understand, but then the more I thought about it, it's like, Tourette's is tics and everything, but there's something more to that in that, if we don't have tics, we don't understand that we have something that we all take for granted, which is we control what we do. It's kind of fundamental, so fundamental we don't think about it. But imagine if your body, you weren't even in control of the basic things your body does. I mean, that's a scary place to be, just for anybody. And so imagine being given something, given something that you can do, that you can take control of, that allows you to get a little bit of control over your own body again. That's kind of a hard thing to even understand, but I hear that a lot actually from parents who go through this.
Okay, so you guys all know the quote, "I have Tourette's, but Tourette's doesn't have me." Well, before I knew the quote, and I'm like, okay, I kind of get like the fundamental. But this, from what I've experienced in the past couple, it makes the statement true. If that makes sense, like I feel like coming on, but you can just it's like makes you the boss man now. You know what I mean? Yeah. You're the boss.
You're the boss man. I like that. That's good. Well, I think that's it. Question?
I just have a quick question. I personally live in a very rural place, and there's not a lot of medical people that are trained in Tourette's, and I'm wondering, how do you get somebody who is trained in this CV? How do you find somebody?
Where are you at? What state?
We're in the Berkshires in Massachusetts.
Okay.
Western Mass.
The thing I would do is contact the TSA. They have a list of providers, and they do have a list of providers who have been trained specifically in this. The TSA has started a behavior therapy institute to train people just to do this. It's small yet. They haven't had a ton of referrals, but they're trying to build it as much as they can. If the TSA doesn't have anybody in your area, another thing to do would be to look at the Association for Behavior and Cognitive Therapies, ABCT. And
Can you say that again?
It's www.abct.org. And that's the National Association for People who do behavior and cognitive therapies. And then you can search their therapist list for people who specialize in Tourette's. And there aren't many of them, but you might find somebody that way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
My daughter went to a therapist for cognitive behavior therapy for some OCD intrusive thoughts. Would she be a good candidate for this?
Potentially, yeah. Any other final questions? Yeah.
One more. How long, I know it's case by case, but how long does it normally take, many sessions?
The standard protocol is 8 sessions over 10 weeks. We will know by session 4 if this is going to do anything. I mean, you can kind of see, this is relatively normal for what it would look like in terms of how it would respond, for a tic. And so if we're not seeing this by, some, with the tics we've dealt with, if we're not seeing fairly decent changes by the 4th session, then we're thinking, okay, this probably isn't going to work. So, yeah.
When you were first going through the tic, you had the head, the chin, everything else, you had eyebrows, and eye. Is all of that, the eyebrows and eyes, any of that still lingers?
Not, I didn't think about that, but no. No. I guess because when I do lift my head back, it all happens at once. Like everything, my eyes, eyebrow, and everything. It's almost like one movement, and I don't really notice that there's several things. But by doing what I did, because the only way I move my eyebrows and stuff when I do that is by moving my head. By me not moving my head, I don't move my eyebrows or anything like that. So yeah, it all just, since it's one movement that makes several movements.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you recommend going off medications that you might be taking before you?
I don't I'm on videotape. You'll never get me to say on videotape any recommendations about medications. I'm not a licensed physician. I'm a psychologist. So.
Sure, but you mentioned, I think, in the previous session that there's less efficacy that you found when somebody's on medication.
Certain types, yeah.
CIBT. Would somebody, find better success if they went off medication first before they started aging?
Right now, we're too early to say that, honestly, just from the data. What I typically do when I have patients, I work with a physician that's prescribed the medications. We'll do CBIT, and if we're starting to see gains, usually the parent's first question when they see this kind of response is like, okay, when can he stop the Risperdal? It's like, slow down, slow down. We're gonna see how this stabilizes, make sure it looks good, make sure it's continuing, and then we'll talk about, a careful plan with your physician. If that's something you want to cut down on the meds, we'll do that in the right way. And then they come back 2 months later and say, I stopped it myself and everything's fine. But that's not what I want to have happen. It should be done in consultation with your physician. And there's no reason that we can think of right now to stop anything before starting this. Any other questions? Yeah.
Are there any, what are the common inhibitors or characteristics for individuals where this therapy doesn't work? I'm just curious, what is the main inhibitor that keeps being successful in some people?
Well, okay, I can tell you this clinically more than anything. Patients who don't want to work on this, who aren't willing to put in the effort, they're not going to do it. You just.
So it's just mainly a matter of the.
Well, it's part of it. I mean, part of it is effort, so that's one thing. The harder time they have sitting and focusing in session, so the more ADHD impaired they are, the more difficult this will be. It's not that it doesn't work, it's just harder to treat. Okay, so those are the two of the big factors that I can think of that are really difficult. Yeah.
Is there an age group that you wouldn't suggest it, like under a certain age, or?
We don't suggest this full protocol much be under the age of 8. We're developing a protocol for younger kids that's less intrusive and less, it's just more advice-giving kinds of things. So we're working on testing that right now. We call that CBIT Junior, basically, for young kids. Yeah.
So those young kids, like 8 or 9, have as much success as a teenager?
Yeah, their real age doesn't seem to matter, really, except for when you're an adult, it's harder to treat. But for the younger kids, it doesn't really seem to matter. Other final questions?
One
yeah.
question. My son has a hard time talking about the tics because then it's just constant. So have you developed a way to open them up to talking about what a tic is and how, even just thinking about the tics.
Yeah, well, I mean,
makes him so
you can kind of see, when we're in here, how I approach talking about tics. It's not a big deal. We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk, they're going to flare up. We'll get to know it. And that's how I think Mike Higgins yesterday, when he talked about turning into the torpedo,
Right.
that just sent chills up my spine, because that's exactly what this is about. So let's stop trying to dodge it. Let's go right at it and attack it. And when you attack it, you'll find it backs down a little bit. And I think that's kind of the mentality we have to send, in that. And I think that, by not stopping talking about it, by engaging it head on, I think you get a lot better response to it. All right. Well, thank you, Carlos.